Taiwan, I'm Laurel Stewart with the news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The Group of 7 nations may be taking a tougher stance on China and increasing their support for Taiwan. That's based on a statement from their latest summit. Tiffany Wong has more.
A tough new statement from the Group of 7 nations made up of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US, removing key language on China from its annual post-summit communique in Quebec. The 2025 statement repeats wording from previous years supporting peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and the peaceful resolution of cross-strait issues. However, it leaves out previous references to the One China policy, which acknowledges Beijing as the sole representative of China. It also does not say their position on Taiwan has not changed. But the statement also made some concessions in regards to China, leaving out references to human rights abuses in Xinjiang, Tibet, and Hong Kong, something the group had in previous years called a major concern. The changes mirror a February joint statement between Japan and the US, which condemned any attempt to change the status quo in the Taiwan Strait by force or coercion. The Chinese embassy in Canada, where the summit was held, said the G7 statement ignored facts and was filled with arrogance, prejudice, and malicious intentions to suppress and attack China. But for Taiwan, actions may speak louder than words, and having the G7 nations support in writing may only be half of what Taiwan needs in the face of growing Chinese pressure on the country. Justin Wu and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council says China's anti-secession law is just another attempt to undermine Taiwan's sovereignty.
这些法律对于我们台湾人民都没有任何的拘束力，同时呢，也不会改变中华民国作为主权国家的事实，那只会造成两岸人民的对立，还有激化彼此的敌意。
The MAC's comments come as China marks 20 years since passing the law, which allows Beijing to use non-peaceful means to stop so-called secessionist forces in Taiwan. A top Chinese Communist Party official used the anniversary to push for unification and warn against Taiwan independence. The MAC says Beijing is using legal tactics to pressure Taiwan. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has made his first appearance at the International Criminal Court for a preliminary trial. While his counsel attempted to delay the proceedings over health concerns, Duterte made an initial appearance after receiving medical clearance. Gino Lopez reports.
Exactly 3 years after he withdrew the Philippines from the International Criminal Court, a frail Rodrigo Duterte makes an appearance at The Hague, facing charges for crimes against humanity in connection to his drug war. Despite seemingly being shown an arrest warrant in the Philippines prior to his extradition to The Hague, his lawyer tells the ICC judge no warrant was shown, calling his arrest unlawful and a form of political score settling by Philippine authorities.
To us lawyers, this would be called an extrajudicial rendition. To the less legally inclined, it was a pure and simple kidnapping.
Prosecutors are accusing the former Philippine president of carrying out systemic attacks against the civilian population during his time in office, after he launched a brutal war on drug gangs and addicts. Outside the ICC, both critics and supporters of Duterte gather. While many decry his drug war as a violation of human rights, pro-Duterte supporters insist that his actions were justified and helped improve the Philippines' security. His daughter, current Philippine Vice President Sara Duterte, was also seen addressing her family's supporters, assuring them of his well-being and delivering a message of encouragement from her father.
Sabihin mo sa kanila, relax lang, may hangganan ng lahat. There will be a day of reckoning for all.
But for families of the victims of Duterte's policy, it's the former president's day of reckoning they are looking forward to. Holding photos of their deceased loved ones, they watch the proceedings closely from thousands of kilometers away in the Philippines. Here they recount how family members were taken from them and continue to echo calls for justice nearly a decade since the killings began.
We want to see from ICC is that Rodrigo Duterte, to pay up for his crimes against humanity, crimes against the Filipino people, for the 30,000 and more victims of extrajudicial killings.
The ICC has set the next hearing to confirm the charges 6 months from now, on the 23rd of September. While the families of the victims look for closure, Duterte still remains popular among many Filipinos, with his arrest further dividing the Philippines between those calling for his conviction and those calling for his return home. Andy Xue and Gino Lopez for TaiwanPlus.
Fake news campaigns on social media are spreading disinformation regarding Duterte's arrest and the case against him. Reese Ayres spoke to Celine Sampson from Vera Files, a Manila-based non-profit news and fact-checking organization, for more.
We've seen a lot of fake news circulating online, particularly in relation to Duterte's recent arrest. What form does this misinformation take in the Philippines, and what channels are being abused?
There are a lot of forms that the disinformation surrounding Duterte's arrest have taken. I mean, every single day since then, we have received tips from Filipinos on posts from social media that they want us to fact check. So a lot of them are text posts. We have also seen a number of videos that have been taken out of context. And a lot of fake quote cards as well. That is a staple in disinformation in the Philippines. It's an easy hundreds of thousands of Filipinos that the disinformation pieces or campaigns are reaching.
And do we know if these misinformation campaigns are centralized or organized? Where are they coming from?
I'm not so sure yet about how organized it is. I mean, I would say that there is probably some bit of organization there. Some of the claims have come from YouTube channels that we have fact-checked in the past. And oftentimes, I mean, there are studies that prove that in the Philippines, disinformation is a business. But then there are also a lot of claims that, appear to have been shared or published by regular Filipinos. There have been some that have come from elsewhere. I would say we still have to do a bit of digging to see if there has been some foreign interference there.
A recent survey from Social Weather Station reported that almost 60% of Filipinos surveyed recognized that misinformation was a problem on the internet. Is that an encouraging figure? And are people becoming more media literate?
A lot of people now use the term fact-checking and also fake news or misinformation, disinformation. So there is awareness, but how confident they are in detecting disinformation, misinformation, that's where the problem is. It's such a huge problem in the Philippines. Like, it affects whether or not people take vaccines or who they vote for in the elections. When it comes to media literacy, you don't immediately see the results, I would say. It takes quite some time for you to see if there's behavior change. But at least you equip students, you equip teachers with the skills to identify misinformation and disinformation, to think more critically about what they see online.
That was Celine Sampson from Vera Files. An Italian-American is an unlikely candidate to work for Taiwan's ruling political party. But that's exactly who the Democratic Progressive Party had running its office in Washington, D.C. for over a decade. As Leslie Liao reports, Michael Fonte's close links with Taiwan began when he moved to the country as a missionary in the 1960s.
Taiwan.
Italian-American Michael Fonte speaks one of Taiwan's native languages. He's fluent in Taiwanese Daigi, known by some as Holowe.
That's me studying Holowe, 1967, in Taitung, son-in-law.
Fonte learned it working as a Roman Catholic missionary in central Taiwan back in the 1960s. From those beginnings, Fonte would go on to become a prominent figure in Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party. He's good friends with former President Tsai Ing-wen and current Vice President Bi Kim-hsiao.
She's really a very warm person. You might not see that in action unless you got to know her well. So I consider her a real friend. I think she considers me a friend as well.
His house is decorated with honors and letters given to him by President Lai Ching-te and former Foreign Minister Joseph Wu. But Fante's name doesn't make headlines in Taiwan because he's mostly been in the United States, working for the DPP in Washington, D.C. How did Fante land that job? Well, he left Taiwan in 1970 after realizing that the social justice work he wanted to do just wasn't viable under Taiwan's authoritarian government at the time, which had imposed martial law.
I mean, one of my problems that I had when I was there was that the Roman Catholic hierarchy was not willing to see us do anything that would upset the government. Okay, deng.
Fante then pursued an Asian Studies degree at the University of Michigan, where he met leading Taiwanese democracy activists Peng Mingmin and Lin Zhongyi.
This one I really treasure because the woman I mentioned to you, who was Lin Zhongyi's daughter, Hyokbun, gave it to me.
Taiwanese Dai was at the time perceived as the language of the dissident community, and Fante's proficiency helped him become a conduit for democracy activist exiles in the U.S.
I know it was considered a bit of an irritant that we were studying Taiwanese, we were speaking Taiwanese, still an awful lot of nervousness on the KMT side about these people going to rise up.
Here we go. This is our...
After a few years in California, Fante reconnected with Peng Mingmin in Washington in 1986, the same year the DPP was officially founded. Shortly thereafter, U.S. NGO, the National Democratic Institute, invited the party to Washington.
So Peng said to me, go be their gopher, take them around. So I did that, and I got to know all the founders. That's where I met Choi Ren, all the other people, Saw-Jin Zhong, people like that.
Cho and Su, leading DPP figures who went on to take government positions in the 2000s, helping the party expand its presence abroad.
I worked for 10 years as a consultant with Xiaobi Kim and Choi Ren. There was a DPP mission here from 1995 to 2000. B. Kim was actually in charge of it for a while.
And when the DPP reopened its U.S. mission in 2013, the party tapped Fante as the office's director. B. Kim Xiao, now the country's vice president, had gone on to become a legislator in Taiwan, and Fante was a staunch friend of the party.
I speak English. I know the Washington scene fairly well. I've got my degree in Asian studies, whatever the hell. It all worked together to make me a viable candidate at that point.
Fante was the perfect go-between for the DPP and U.S. policymakers.
Our job is to be as honest as we can with the DPP about what we're hearing here about policy from a variety of sources, mostly from the government in power here, but also the opposition as well.
Fante has since passed the torch as DPP's Washington director, but his love for Taiwan is still very much a part of him.
I'm Italian-American, and when I got to Taiwan, I realized family, food, and friends, right? It's the same for Taiwanese, it's the same for Italians. So it's very easy to feel part of that culture and make a lot of good friends.
From Brooklyn, New York, to the farms of central Taiwan, to Washington, D.C., Michael Fante probably never imagined that his early years as a missionary would spark a career in politics. And the Democratic Progressive Party probably never thought that one of its biggest overseas champions would be an Italian-American fluent in Dai. Leon Lian, Laurel Stewart, and Leslie Liao in Washington, D.C. for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out these cherry blossoms at a Tokyo aquarium. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care and see you next time.